Org. Ragged Dick, or Street Life in New York with the Bootblacks, by Horatio Alger, Jr. Chapter 23. Travis is Arrested. Jim Travis advanced into the bank with a doubtful step, knowing well that he was on a dishonest errand, and heartily wishing that he were well out of it. After a little hesitation, he approached the paying teller, and exhibiting the bank book, said,
"I want to get my money out."
The bank officer took the book, and after looking at it a moment, said, "How much do you want?"
"The whole of it,"
said Travis.
"You can draw out any part of it, but to draw out the whole requires a week's notice."
"Then I'll take $100.
"Are you the person to whom the book belongs?"
"Yes, sir,"
said Travis, without hesitation.
"Your name is?"
"Hunter."
The bank clerk went to a large folio volume, containing the names of depositors, and began to turn over the leaves. While he was doing this, he managed to send out a young man connected with the bank for a policeman. Travis did not perceive this, or did not suspect that it had anything to do with himself. Not being used to savings banks, he supposed the delay only what was usual. After a search, which was only intended to gain time that a policeman might be summoned, the cashier came back, and sliding out a piece of paper to Travis, said,
"It will be necessary for you to write out an order for the money."
Travis took a pen, which he found on the ledge outside, and wrote the order, signing his name Dick Hunter, having observed that name on the outside of the book.
"Your name is Dick Hunter, then?"
said the cashier, taking the paper and looking at the thief over his spectacles.
"Yes," said Travis promptly.
"But," continued the cashier, "I find Hunter's age is put down on the bank book at 14. Surely you must be more than that."
Travis would gladly have declared that he was only 14, but being in reality 23, and possessing a luxuriant pair of whiskers, this was not to be thought of. He began to feel uneasy.
"Dick Hunter's my younger brother," he said. "I'm getting out the money for him."
"I thought you said your own name was Dick Hunter,"
said the cashier.
"I said my name was Hunter," said Travis ingenuously. "I didn't understand you."
"But you've signed the name of Dick Hunter to this order. How is that?"
questioned the troublesome cashier. Travis saw that he was getting himself into a tight place, but his self-possession did not desert him.
"I thought I must give my brother's name," he answered.
"What is your own name?"
"Henry Hunter."
"Can you bring anyone to testify that the statement you are making is correct?"
"Yes, a dozen if you like," said Travis boldly. "Give me the book, and I'll come back this afternoon. I didn't think there'd be such a fuss about getting out a little money."
"Wait a moment. Why don't your brother come himself?"
"Because he's sick. He's down with the measles," said Travis.
Here the cashier signed to Dick to rise and show himself. Our hero accordingly did so.
"You will be glad to find that he has recovered,"
said the cashier, pointing to Dick. With an exclamation of anger and dismay, Travis, who saw the game was up, started for the door, feeling that safety made such a course prudent. But he was too late. He found himself confronted by a burly policeman, who seized him by the arm, saying,
"Not so fast, my man. I want you." "Let me go,"
exclaimed Travis, struggling to free himself.
"I'm sorry I can't oblige you," said the officer. "You'd better not make a fuss, or I may have to hurt you a little."
Travis sullenly resigned himself to his fate, darting a look of rage at Dick, whom he considered the author of his present misfortune.
"This is your book,"
said the cashier, handing back his rightful property to our hero.
"Do you wish to draw out any money?"
$2, said Dick.
"Very well. Write an order for the amount."
Before doing so, Dick, who, now that he saw Travis in the power of the law, began to pity him, went up to the officer and said, "Won't you let him go? I've got my bank book back, and I don't want anything done to him."
"Sorry I can't oblige you," said the officer, "but I'm not allowed to do it. He'll have to stand his trial."
"I'm sorry for you, Travis," said Dick. "I didn't want you arrested. I only wanted my bank book back."
"Curse you," said Travis, scowling vindictively. "Wait till I get free. See if I don't fix you." "You needn't pity him too much," said the officer. "I know him now. He's been to the island before." "It's a lie," said Travis violently. "Don't be too noisy, my friend," said the officer. "If you've got no more business here, we'll be going." He withdrew with the prisoner in charge, and Dick, having drawn his $2, left the bank. Notwithstanding the violent words the prisoner had used towards himself, and his attempted robbery, he could not help feeling sorry that he had been instrumental in causing his arrest. "I'll keep my book a little safer hereafter," thought Dick. "Now I must go and see Tom Wilkins." Before dismissing the subject of Travis and his theft, it may be remarked that he was duly tried, and his guilt being clear, was sent to Blackwell's Island for 9 months. At the end of that time, on his release, he got a chance to work his passage on a ship to San Francisco, where he probably arrived in due time. At any rate, nothing more has been heard of him, and probably his threat of vengeance against Dick will never be carried into effect. Returning to the City Hall Park, Dick soon fell in with Tom Wilkins. "How are you, Tom?" he said. "How's your mother?" "She's better, Dick. Thank you. She felt worried about being turned out into the street, but I gave her that money from you, and now she feels a good deal easier." "I've got some more money for you, Tom," said Dick, producing a $2 bill from his pocket. "I ought not to take it from you, Dick." "Oh, it's all right, Tom. Don't be afraid." "But you may need it yourself." "There's plenty more where that came from." "Anyway, $1 will be enough. With that we can pay the rent." "You'll want the other to buy something to eat." "You're very kind, Dick." "I'd ought to be. I've only got myself to take care of." "Well, I'll just take it for my mother's sake. When you want anything done, just call on Tom Wilkins." "All right. Next week, if your mother doesn't get better, I'll give you some more." Tom thanked our hero very gratefully, and Dick walked away, feeling the self-approval which always accompanies a generous and disinterested action. He was generous by nature, and before the period at which is introduced to the reader's notice, he frequently treated his friends to cigars and oyster stews. Sometimes he invited them to accompany him to the theater at his expense, but he never derived from these acts of liberality the same degree of satisfaction as from this timely gift to Tom Wilkins. He felt that his money was well bestowed, and would save an entire family from privation and discomfort. $5 would, to be sure, make something of a difference in the amount of his savings. It was more than he was able to save up in a week. But Dick felt fully repaid for what he had done, and he felt prepared to give as much more, if Tom's mother should continue to be sick, and should appear to him to need it. Besides all this, Dick felt a justifiable pride in his financial ability to afford so handsome a gift. A year before, however much he would have desired to give, it would have been quite out of his power to give $5. His cash balance never reached that amount. It was seldom, indeed, that it equaled $1. In more ways than one, Dick was beginning to reap the advantage of his self-denial and judicious economy. It will be remembered that when Mr. Whitney, at parting with Dick, presented him with $5, he told him that he might repay it to some other boy who was struggling upward. Dick thought of this, and it occurred to him that after all he was only paying up an old debt. When Fosdick came home in the evening, Dick announced his success in recovering his lost money, and described the manner it had been brought about. "You're in luck," said Fosdick. "I guess we'd better not trust the bureau drawer again." "I mean to carry my book around with me," said Dick.
"So shall I, as long as we stay at Mrs. Mooney's. I wish we were in a better place." "I must go down and tell her she needn't expect Travis back. Poor chap, I pity him." Travis was never more seen in Mrs. Mooney's establishment. He was owing that lady for a fortnight's rent of his room, which prevented her feeling much compassion for him. The room was soon after let to a more creditable tenant, who proved a less troublesome neighbor than his predecessor. Chapter 23. Chapter 24. Dick receives a letter. It was about a week after Dick's recovery of his bank book that Fosdick brought home with him in the evening a copy of the Daily Sun. "Would you like to see your name in print, Dick?" he asked. "Yes," said Dick, who was busy at the washstand, endeavoring to efface the marks which his day's work had left upon his hands. "They haven't put me up for mayor, have they? 'Cause if they have, I shan't accept. It would interfere too much with my private business." "No," said Fosdick, "they haven't put you up for office yet, though it may happen sometime. But if you want to see your name in print, here it is." Dick was rather incredulous, but having dried his hands on the towel, took the paper, and following the directions of Fosdick's finger, observed in the list of advertised letters the name of Ragged Dick. "By gracious, so it is," said he. "Do you suppose it means me?" "I don't know of any other Ragged Dick. Do you?" "No," said Dick reflectively. "It must be me. But I don't know of anybody that would be likely to write to me." "Perhaps it is Frank Whitney," suggested Fosdick, after a little reflection. "Didn't he promise to write to you?" "Yes," said Dick, "and he wanted me to write to him." "Where is he now?" "He was going to a boarding school in Connecticut, he said. The name of the town was Barnton." "Very likely the letter is from him." "I hope it is. Frank was a tip-top boy, and he was the first that made me ashamed of being so ignorant and dirty." "You had better go to the post office to-morrow morning and ask for the letter." "Perhaps they won't give it to me." "Suppose you wear the old clothes you used to a year ago, when Frank first saw you. They won't have any doubt of your being Ragged Dick then." "I guess I will. I'll be sort of ashamed to be seen in 'em, though," said Dick, who had considerable more pride in a neat personal appearance than when we were first introduced to him. "It will only be for one day, or one morning," said Fosdick. "I'd do more'n that for the sake of getting a letter from Frank. I'd like to see him." The next morning, in accordance with the suggestion of Fosdick, Dick arrayed himself in the long disused Washington coat and Napoleon pants, which he had carefully preserved, for what reason he could hardly explain. When fairly equipped, Dick surveyed himself in the mirror, if the little 7x9-inch looking-glass with which the room was furnished deserved the name. The result of the survey was not on the whole a pleasing one. To tell the truth, Dick was quite ashamed of his appearance, and on opening the chamber door, looked around to see that the coast was clear, not being willing to have any of his fellow boarders see him in his present attire. He managed to slip out into the street unobserved, and after attending to 2 or 3 regular customers who came downtown early in the morning, he made his way down Nassau Street to the post office. He passed along until he came to a compartment on which read, "Advertised Letters," and stepping up to the little window, said, "There's a letter for me. I saw it advertised in the Sun yesterday."
"What name?"
demanded the clerk. "Ragged Dick," answered our hero.
"That's a queer name," said the clerk, surveying him a little curiously. "Are you Ragged Dick?"
"If you don't believe me, look at my clothes," said Dick.
"That's pretty good proof, certainly," said the clerk, laughing. "If that isn't your name, it deserves to be."
"I believe in dressing up to your name," said Dick.
"Do you know any one in Barnton, Connecticut?" asked the clerk, who had by this time found the letter.
"Yes," said Dick. "I know a chap that's at boarding school there."
"It appears to be in a boy's hand. I think it must be yours."
The letter was handed to Dick through the window. He received it eagerly, and drawing back so as not to be in the way of the throng who were constantly applying for letters, or slipping them into the boxes provided for them, hastily opened it, and began to read. As the reader may be interested in the contents of the letter as well as Dick, we transcribe it below. It was dated Barnton, Connecticut, and commenced thus: Dear Dick, you must excuse my addressing this letter to Ragged Dick, but the fact is, I don't know what your last name is, nor where you live. I am afraid there is not much chance of your getting this letter, but I hope you will. I have thought of you very often, and wondered how you were getting along, and I should have written to you before if I had known where to direct. Let me tell you a little about myself. Barnton is a very pretty country town, only about 6 miles from Hartford. The boarding school which I attend is under the charge of Ezekiel Monroe, A.M. He is a man of about 50, a graduate of Yale College, and has always been a teacher. It is a large 2-story house, with an addition containing a good many small bedchambers for the boys. There are about 20 of us, and there is one assistant teacher who teaches the English branches. Mr. Monroe, or Old Zeke as we call him behind his back, teaches Latin and Greek. I am studying both these languages, because Father wants me to go to college. But you won't be interested in hearing about our studies. I will tell you how we amuse ourselves. There are about 50 acres of land belonging to Mr. Monroe, so that we have plenty of room for play. About 1/4 of a mile from the house there is a good-sized pond. There is a large, round-bottomed boat, which is stout and strong. Every Wednesday and Saturday afternoon, when the weather is good, we go out rowing on the pond. Mr. Barton, the assistant teacher, goes with us to look after us. In the summer we are allowed to go in bathing. In the winter there is splendid skating on the pond. Besides this, we play ball a good deal, and we have various other plays. So we have a pretty good time, although we study pretty hard, too. I am getting on very well in my studies. Father has not decided yet where he will send me to college. I wish you were here, Dick. I should enjoy your company, and besides I should like to feel that you are getting an education. I think you are naturally a pretty smart boy, but I suppose, as you have to earn your own living, you don't get much chance to learn. I only wish I had a few $100 of my own. I would have you come up here and attend school with us. If I ever have a chance to help you in any way, you may be sure that I will. I shall have to wind up my letter now, as I have to hand in a composition tomorrow, on the life and character of Washington. I might say that I have a friend who wears a coat that once belonged to the General, but I suppose that coat must be worn out by this time. I don't much like writing compositions. I would a good deal rather write letters. I have written a longer letter than I meant to. I hope you will get it, though I am afraid not. If you do, you must be sure to answer it as soon as possible. You needn't mind if your writing does look like hen's tracks, as you told me once. Good-bye, Dick. You must always think of me as your very true friend, Frank Whitney. Dick read this letter with much satisfaction. It is always pleasant to be remembered, and Dick had so few friends that it was more to him than to boys who are better provided. Again he felt a new sense of importance in having a letter addressed to him. It was the first letter he had ever received. If it had been sent to him a year before, he would not have been able to read it. But now, thanks to Fosdick's instructions, he could not only read writing, but he could write a very good hand himself. There was one passage in the letter which pleased Dick. It was where Frank said that if he had the money he would pay for his education himself. "He's a tip-top feller," said Dick. "I wish I could see him again." There were 2 reasons why Dick would have liked to have seen Frank. One was the natural pleasure he would have in meeting a friend, but he felt also that he would like to have Frank witness the improvement he had made in his studies and mode of life. "He'd find me a little more 'spectable than when he first saw me," thought Dick. Dick had by this time got up to Printing House Square. Standing on Spruce Street near the Tribune office was his old enemy, Mickey Maguire. It has already been said that Mickey felt a natural enmity towards those in his own condition in life who wore better clothes than himself. For the last 9 months, Dick's neat appearance had excited the ire of the young Philistine. To appear in neat attire and with a clean face, Micky felt was a piece of presumption, and an assumption of superiority on the part of our hero, and he termed it "tryin' to be a swell." Now his astonished eyes rested on Dick in his ancient attire, which was very similar to his own. It was a moment of triumph to him. He felt that pride had had a fall, and he could not forbear reminding Dick of it.
"Them's nice clothes you've got on," said he, sarcastically, as Dick came up.
"Yes," said Dick promptly. "I've been employin' your tailor. If my face was only dirty, we'd be taken for twin brothers."
"So you've given up tryin' to be a swell?"
"Only for this particular occasion," said Dick. "I wanted to make a fashionable call, so I put on my regimentals."
"I don't believe you've got any better clothes," said Micky.
"All right," said Dick. "I won't charge you nothing for what you believe." Here a customer presented himself for Micky, and Dick went back to his room to change his clothes before resuming business. Chapter 24.